You would think by now the Cleveland Browns would have figured out how not to be their own worst enemy. But here we are again, watching the franchise that invented fumbles find a way to drop the ball off the field too. They didn't just let go of a quarterback. They let go of a movement, a brand, and maybe the future face of the league. Shedeur Sanders isn't crying into a playbook. He isn't refreshing his mentions waiting for pity likes. And he definitely isn't begging to be someone's backup. No, Shedeur Sanders took their rejection, flipped it into a power play, and walked out the door wearing a $14 million empire like a championship ring. That's not just survival, that's dominance. And it leaves Cleveland sitting in the corner like the ex who thought they'd moved on, only to see their old flame glow up in front of the whole world. Now let's lock in, because what we're witnessing isn't just a roster move gone wrong. It's a story about how one decision, one cut, can shift the balance of power between franchises and players in ways the old guard of the NFL still isn't ready for. And yes, I said power, because Shedeur didn't just survive this cut. He turned it into proof that the next generation of athletes aren't waiting for permission. They're building their own platforms, their own businesses, their own leverage. The Browns thought they were humbling him. Instead, they handed him the mic, the camera crew, and the receipts to clown them forever. So let's roll back and unpack exactly how Cleveland turned a camp cut into the NFL's newest empire launch, and why every quarterback, GM, and fan should be paying attention to IT started on what should have been a routine Thursday in Cleveland. Coaches hunched over film, assistants juggling depth charts, and somewhere in that maze of beige office walls, a front office staffer clicked send on the kind of generic statement NFL teams love. Shedeur Sanders released. That's it. No nuance, no warning, no story. Just, thanks for your time. And within seconds, Twitter, or sorry, NFL Twitter, that digital stadium of chaos, erupted. Memes, hashtags, outrage. Fans were bewildered because Shedeur wasn't just some training camp body. He was out there carving defenses like a chef with a sharp knife, running 2-minute drills so clean you'd think he was a 5-year veteran, and commanding huddles with the kind of authority you can't teach. He wasn't a liability. He wasn't a distraction. He wasn't even average. He was better than half the quarterbacks still cashing checks in Cleveland. And somehow, for making a culture move, Shedeur was setting up cameras, pulling up contracts, and dialing partners. Within minutes, literally minutes, he held a press conference. No, not one of those awkward, I'll do better spiels you see from players trying to salvage their careers. This was a CEO launch. He announced the Locker Room Legacy Project, a $14 million media and development empire with him at the center. Training centers, youth mentorship, NIL consulting, a digital sports series, all under his name. And just to flex harder, he tied it all into community uplift and modern sports tech. Translation: he made himself bigger than the team that cut him. Cleveland handed him a pink slip. He turned it into a crown. Now imagine being Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, sitting in some leather chair, scrolling Twitter, and realizing you didn't just cut a player. You ignited a firestorm. Word inside the building? Panic. They thought they were sending a message. Instead, they made themselves the punchline of every sports show from ESPN to TikTok. Because let's decode culture fit. What they really meant was, Shedeur had too much presence, too much swagger, too much control of his own story. He wasn't waiting for them to tell it for him. And instead of embracing that, they tried to suppress it. But here's the thing, you can't bench gravity. You can't humble momentum. And you definitely can't erase charisma backed by competence. Cleveland tried, and now they're the ones. Humbled by the headlines, by the fans, and by the player they underestimated. And as if that wasn't enough, the dominoes started falling almost immediately. Other teams, who had conveniently missed Shedeur's highlight reels when he was available, suddenly found their phones working. Agents texting, scouts scrambling, analysts replaying film they'd ignored. Because no GM wants to be the guy who passed on this story twice. It's not just about his arm anymore. It's about what he represents. A quarterback who can run an offense and a media company at the same time? That's marketing gold. A player who can lead in the locker room and in youth programs? That's culture currency. A young star who builds a brand independent of the league itself? That's terrifying and valuable. By the time Week 1 kicks off, Shedeur Sanders could be the most talked about player in the NFL without taking a single snap. That's power. And here's where the roast comes in. While Shedeur is negotiating like a Fortune 500 exec, Cleveland is probably still arguing over whether Dylan Gabriel can survive a third down blitz without curling into a ball. It's laughable. They didn't just cut a quarterback. They cut the narrative that could have redefined their entire franchise. Imagine passing on a quarterback who comes with his own fan base, his own media deals, and his own leadership pipeline. That's like buying a sports car and immediately ripping out the engine because you don't like the sound. Congratulations, Cleveland. You've turned incompetence and stay quiet. Play your role. Wait your turn. Just saw Shedeur get cut and come back stronger. That's the blueprint now. Build your brand, bet on yourself, and make the league bend to your narrative, not the other way around. And for every mid-tier NFL starter clinging to a job, Shedeur's name is now the shadow in the room. Because the second they falter, the question will be asked, why not Sanders? Once your name is chosen by the fans, you're not a prospect anymore. You're a demand. And what makes Shedeur's play so brilliant isn't just the money. It's the silence. He didn't whine. He didn't subtweet. He didn't storm Instagram with sweaty workout montages. He let the Browns bury themselves in their own bland press release, then detonated a bombshell so controlled, so calculated, that it made him look untouchable. Silence plus strategy equals down to crawl into anyone's QB3 slot just to prove he belongs. The offers will come, and when the right one lands, he'll walk in not as a prospect, but as a partner. Because he's not just signing on a play anymore. He's co-writing the script of what an NFL superstar looks like in 2025. And that script includes entrepreneurship, community, media, and control. The Browns thought they closed his chapter. What they really did was launch his origin story to let's call it plain. Cleveland fumbled. Again. But this time, they didn't just lose a game. They lost the future. And Shedeur Sanders? He didn't. Just rebound. He redefined what a rebound even means. Forget chips on shoulders. He melted his more. He's building his empire in real time. And the next move is going to cost a whole lot more than $14 million.